Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I'd really appreciate your comment. It helps me understand if you enjoyed the story and how I can improve in future ones. I was halfway through reheating leftover brisket and answering a client's email when the sentence landed like a casual weather report. You're more like a friend I happen to date. The microwave kept humming. The AC kicked on. It all stayed ordinary except for the part where my relationship quietly shifted an inch to the left and never moved back. My name is Ethan Cross. I'm 37, a financial analyst in Dallas, Texas. Tuesday night, 8:42 p.m., in a condo I pay for and keep tidy. I heard the kind of line that doesn't ask for a fight, just an adjustment. She said it from the edge of the couch, feet tucked under her, phone face down on the throw pillow like evidence she wasn't ready to discuss. No anger in her voice. The tone people use when they've downgraded a subscription and expect you to nod. I tasted the sweet heat of the barbecue sauce and felt nothing dramatic, just a neat little click in the back of my head. More like a friend, I repeated, mostly to hear the shape of it. Not confusion, just testing the weight. She smiled the way you smile at a barista who gets your name wrong, but still hands you coffee. Yeah, she said. You know, easy. Comfortable. Comfortable, like an old sweatshirt you don't wear out of the apartment. I put the container in the sink and ran water over it. The faucet hissed. She picked up the remote and scrolled past a row of shows we used to watch together. My phone buzzed with the follow-up from a portfolio review I'd scheduled for Thursday. Numbers, projections, decisions, things that have edges and answers. Out here, in the warm light of my living room, nothing had an edge except that sentence. I took my usual seat at the other end of the couch. We used to meet in the middle, knees touching, her legs across my lap, a shared blanket like a truce flag. Lately, it's been one cushion farther each week. I'd noticed the shift without naming it. She talked about a new coworker who gets her sense of humor and how it was nice to feel seen. I filed the phrase away the way I file expenses, quietly, without announcing it. If you ask me what felt off before that sentence, I can make a list. The way our Friday date nights kept drifting into group plans, then into let's just stay in, then into I'm tired, maybe tomorrow. The way her phone learned to sleep face down. The new habit of locking the bathroom door when she showered. The way her good night kisses migrated from my mouth to my cheek and then, on busy days, became a word shouted from the hallway. None of it illegal. None of it scandalous. Just small reallocations of attention. That line merely finalized the budget. I didn't argue. Arguing would have turned it into a negotiation. And if there's one thing numbers have taught me, it's that you respect the first clear statement. If a company says they're pivoting, believe them. If your girlfriend says you're more like a friend, don't draft a rebuttal. Take notes. The show she picked was some soft, forgettable series where everyone makes safe choices and the stakes reset after each episode. Fitting. I watched the light from the screen wash over her face and felt something more honest than anger. Relief. Not the warm kind. More like the relief of a diagnosis. You don't feel better immediately, but at least you know what you're treating. I asked one question, calm, the way I ask clients when they say they're risk-tolerant and then flinch at a dip. Is that what you want us to be? She didn't look at me. I just don't need all the extra. It's exhausting. The extra. Planning dinners, holding hands in the grocery store aisle, setting reminders to buy the wine she likes because it makes her feel thought of. The extra has a way of keeping two people from becoming roommates with shared Wi-Fi. Her phone lit up. Screen flashed a name I didn't recognize, then dimmed. She didn't reach for it. I stood, gathered our plates, rinsed them with the same attention I bring to terminal values and discount rates. You keep your hands moving when your brain wants to stall. At the sink, I listed the facts. I initiate most of the physical affection. I plan most of the plans. I've started speaking less to see if she notices the silence. She doesn't. When I stop texting good morning, she responds at noon with a meme. Over the past month, we has felt like a word she keeps in a drawer and pulls out for holidays. Back on the couch, I tried to remember the last time she reached for me first. I could track it like a line on a chart. Slight downward slope starting in late spring, sharper in June after her wellness weekend, flatter in July when she took up running at dusk with a playlist and a stern face. She asked what I was thinking. I told her the truth, because I'm practicing that lately. Just recalculating. She laughed, not unkindly. You and your spreadsheets. The joke used to be affectionate. Now it's a way to push me back into a box labeled predictable. I smiled anyway. No need to show my work. We watched the episode. Credits rolled. She stretched, said she might read in bed. I nodded and said I'd finish an email. The calm between us felt like a hotel lobby. Polished, quiet, a place for transition rather than living. She kissed my cheek, a quick stamp. When the bedroom door closed, the condo felt larger. I typed a sentence to a client and stared through it. Then I opened my personal notes app and wrote 5 words. Take her at her word. It was just alignment. If the market tells you how it values an asset, you adjust your position. If the person you love calls you more like a friend, you stop pretending you're starring in a romance. You stop spending like you're in growth mode. You go to cash. I brushed my teeth. In the mirror, I looked the same. Shirt sleeves rolled, days stubble, the steady face that never scared in meetings. In my chest, something unclenched. The exact sensation of closing a file that's been open too long. She was asleep on her side of the bed, phone charging on her nightstand, screen dark. I lay down on mine and stared at the ceiling fan. 3 blades. Even rotation, the reliable hum you stop hearing after a few minutes. I counted the beats between the thrum and my own breathing and thought of the first time she called me solid. Back then, it meant dependable. Tonight, it felt like a paperweight holding down a stack of things she didn't want to read. Before I turned off the light, I texted my brother about tickets for the Mavericks opener, something I'd been saving as a surprise date idea. I told him I had an extra seat. He sent a thumbs up and a question mark. I said I'd explain later. Then I set my phone face down and mashed her habit, just to feel the weight of it. I slept fine, not because everything was okay, but because the terms were finally clear. In the morning, I'd make coffee, answer emails, go lift at the gym, and send a few calendar invites to friends, the actual kind. I was, for the first time in weeks, exactly what she said I was. The next morning slid in like a memo, short, actionable. Her kiss was air. The coffee I poured her earned a polite thanks and a reminder that she had a busy week. On the drive to the office, I watched dawn pour itself over the tollway and realized I was already adjusting my spreadsheets, moving romance from operating expense to discretionary. By lunch, she'd texted a meme about roommate vibes. A laughing emoji. That became the shape of the week. She turned small rituals into casual erasures. The good morning we used to trade before opening our laptops became a thumbs up. The midday check-in call turned into a reel she sent from an account that quotes jokes about men who confuse attention with love. That night, I suggested we try the new Thai place near the arena. She blinked at her calendar and shrugged. Busy. Maybe next week. I looked at the tiny box on my phone with our names in it and felt how much air you can fit around 2 people when one of them decides the walls move. Thursday, we grabbed groceries. We used to walk the aisles like a team, splitting the list, comparing sauces, letting our cart bump into each other on purpose. This time she scrolled on her phone and laughed at something I couldn't see. When I asked if she wanted the Chardonnay she liked, she waved a hand. Wine is for date nights. We're not doing those right now. She called me buddy in the checkout line. The cashier looked up and smiled the way strangers smile at couples who seem stable. Funny what people project on a quiet Friday night. She went out with coworkers and sent me a group selfie from some rooftop with string lights and flirty angles. Caption: The girls and the office therapist. The therapist was a 20-something with a book deal and a wardrobe that had never met a budget. When she came home near midnight, she smelled like rosemary and expensive gin. I'd left a glass of water on her side of the counter. She took one sip and told me I should get out more, meet new people, diversify my social life. She said it like advice about a 401k. Saturday, we met friends for brunch. I used to like these mornings. Eggs, sunlight, that mild Dallas breeze that lasts 20 minutes in April and 5 in October. She sat across, not next to me. When the server asked about the check, she pointed at me with a smile that was halfway between gratitude and outsourcing. Our friend Jenna told a story about a proposal at a baseball game. Someone asked if that was my style. Before I could answer, my girlfriend laughed and said I'm more practical. He's great at logistics. Roommate of the year. Everyone chuckled. I looked at the toast crumbs and felt my jaw relax the way you do when you decide you're not defending yourself in public. After brunch, in the parking lot heat, I asked the question that had been forming all week. Not a trap. What do you actually want from me? She squinted into the sun. I just don't need all the intensity. I want easy. I want fun. I want to feel light. She said the words like she was refusing a dessert that looked good but wasn't worth the sugar. I nodded, the same way I nod when a client announces they're risk-averse after chasing returns for 2 years. Copy that. Sunday afternoon, she curled on the couch, legs tucked under a blanket, and scrolled past our photos to show me a coworker's puppy. She asked if I'd mind skipping the gym so we could watch a show together, then barely looked up during the episode. She narrated TikToks out loud, relationship clips that treat men like algorithms to be optimized. When I reached for her hand, she let me hold it for the length of one scene, and then withdrew to answer a DM. You can't be hurt by silence if you name it routine. Monday, the testing started in earnest. She borrowed my hoodie and wore it to work, posted a mirror selfie with a caption about stealing from the roommate. A dozen heart eyes in the comments. At lunch, she sent me a link to a travel vlog from Tulum with a note. Doesn't this look freeing? That night, when I set 2 plates on the island and asked whether she wanted to eat together or later, she answered later and then ate standing up, fork tapping the bowl like a metronome. She went to bed early, lights off, headphones in, a white glow under the duvet from her phone. I lay there and listened to the air intake of the AC and wondered when we had become a courtesy title. If there's a gift in pressure, it's the way it clarifies. Tuesday, she announced she might do a girls' weekend in Austin. I said okay, and meant it. She studied my face like she was waiting for an objection that didn't come. After dinner, she tried a new angle, leaned against the counter, and told me how a guy at work had asked whether we were serious. She laughed telling it. I smiled and asked if she'd answered him. She shrugged. I don't label things. We keep it friendly. Friendly is a word with so many exits. 2 days later, she tested the blame lever. We were folding laundry. She tossed a t-shirt at my side of the bed and mentioned that I'd been distant. I asked what distant meant to her. She said it felt like I wasn't chasing anymore. I repeated her words from the couch, the ones that started the math. You're more like a friend I happen to date. She stared at the pile between us, cheeks tight, as if she'd just realized the invoice was arriving exactly as ordered. Then she pivoted. I don't want to fight. I want to feel good around you. Friday brought public comparison. Happy hour with her team, a place with Edison bulbs and reclaimed wood. I joined because she asked. One of her coworkers joked that I have husband energy. She laughed and corrected him. Think friend energy. Everyone laughed again. I didn't check her phone. I asked 2 clean questions instead, one on a walk around the block under a sky orange enough to feel fake. Are you bored with me? She said no. Are you done being my girlfriend? She said no again, but the no was soft, the kind you use when the truth isn't ready yet. Back home, I circled the answers in my head and left the rest blank. She tried seduction one evening, but even that arrived with distance. New dress, hair up, a perfume I didn't recognize. She looked incredible, and she knew it. We kissed on the way out the door, a kiss that had theater in it, and half an hour later she was back on her phone, thumbs moving, laughter for someone who wasn't me. When I reached for her waist, she let me, then stepped back to take a photo in better light. I stepped back too and watched the frame adjust to her without me in it. By the end of the second week, I had enough data to stop pretending the curve would swing by itself. The pressure had done its job. The jokes, the labels, the skipped rituals, the public framing. None of it cruel, all of it decisive. She wasn't dismantling us with a hammer. She was sanding the edges until the shape stopped looking like something you'd call a relationship. I kept my voice low. I asked one last time. If this is friendship, say it clean, and I'll meet you there. She exhaled like a runner at the end of a mile. I just want to feel light. That was the whole sentence. I rinsed my glass and set it upside down to dry. The pressure stopped feeling like a wall. I woke up the morning after her light and easy declaration and let the new temperature hold. No talk. I made my coffee, 1 mug, no second cup waiting for approval. I left the lid on the sugar jar the way she hates and set my phone to do not disturb until 9. At 8:17, she sent a reel. I watched it at 9:03 and tapped a single heart. Friends acknowledge. They don't perform. The response wasn't vengeance. It was alignment. If I was more like a friend she happened to date, then the dating part, the planning, the little anticipations, became optional. I didn't announce a policy change. I just stopped volunteering for a job she said she didn't need filled. Morning texts? Skipped. Midday check-ins? Replaced with a gym session and a protein shake. Evenings? I treated them like open hours, reading, a run at White Rock, a call with my brother about the Mavericks opener. The extra seat I'd been saving as a surprise for her move to his name without ceremony. He sent a fist bump. I matched it and closed the calendar tab. I kept every kindness that fits inside friendship. I carried in her packages, fixed the hallway bulb, drove when we were headed to the same place. I took out the trash and didn't dramatize it with sighs. But I stopped curating the mood, stopped setting candles she didn't notice, stopped buying the deep red cab she used to call date wine. I bought a six-pack for the game and laughed with my brother on speaker while I chopped vegetables for myself. When she came home late and hovered by the island, I made an extra portion, slid it her way, and kept the conversation on the surface where she parked us. How was your day? Anything good at work? She waited for the follow UPS I used to ask, the ones that proved I was taking notes. I let the silence handle quality control. There's a kind of peace that comes when you stop chasing. I felt it during lunch hours, walking 3 blocks around my building with a podcast, no compulsion to check whether she had texted. I felt it at my desk when an email from a client pinged, and I answered in full sentences like a man whose life is wider than one question. I even felt it in the elevator mirror, same face, steadier eyes. She noticed, but not all at once. First it was a "you're quiet lately," tossed over her shoulder on the way to the shower. Then a longer glance when I waved off a show we used to watch and opened a book instead. Later, I got a half-playful elbow at the fridge. "Since when do you hoard the good yogurt?" I tapped the lid. Marked my name like roommates do. We both smiled. She waited for the wink that turns a tease into a tug. I turned back to the skillet. When she floated an idea, "We should try that pop-up this weekend." I said, "Sounds cool. If you're going, have fun." She blinked, recalculating. "With you," she added, slower. I shrugged like any friend who's got a schedule now. "I've got the game Saturday. Sunday, I'm lifting with Drew. Maybe next week." No edge, just inventory. She nodded and poured sparkling water she once called celebration bubbles, drank it like tap. Instead of us, I invested in me. Nothing flashy. I added a boxing class twice a week and moved my old guitar from the closet to its stand by the window. I registered for a Saturday morning financial literacy workshop I'd been meaning to teach at the church rec hall. I changed my emergency contact at the doctor from her to my brother because he actually answers on the first ring. Quiet, administrative edits. The kind you don't post about. At work, I said yes to a Houston trip I'd been deferring, as proof that my life had rooms I hadn't used lately. On the flight back, I drafted a list titled Light. Under it, I put things I could do without asking anyone to meet me halfway. Lift heavier, cook better, run faster, read longer, sleep on my side of the bed, and wake up clear. The list wasn't grand. It was adult. She tested the new surface with little taps. "We should do a date night soon." I smiled. "That's a relationship thing, isn't it?" She searched my face for mockery and found none. She adjusted. "Okay then, hang out?" "Sure," I said friendly. "Text me when you're free." She laughed like I'd made a joke, but I hadn't. My time is a calendar now, not a faucet. The Mavericks opener arrived. I wore her favorite jacket anyway because it's mine and I like it. When she saw us at the door, my brother loud, me calm, she must have expected an invite. I kissed her cheek the way friends do at holidays and said we'd be late, don't wait up. In the arena, surrounded by noise, I felt exactly what I hadn't felt in months. Uncomplicated joy that didn't need permission. I bought my brother a beer and sent no photos home. Back in the condo later, she sat at the island with a bowl and the kind of smile people wear when they've prepared a reasonable question. "So are we good?" I rinsed my hands and nodded. "We're fine." She waited. "Fine like?" I dried my hands. "Like friends." I said it evenly, returned her sentence in the wrapping paper she chose. "Not a gotcha. A receipt." She looked down, then up and away, as if the room had shifted 1 inch to the left again. The rest of the week turned into an experiment she hadn't planned to run. She brushed my arm as she passed, and looked back to see if I'd turned that into a scene. She asked my opinion on a dress for a coworker's party and stood at the bedroom door longer than necessary. "Looks good," I said, because it did, and went back to my book. She lingered, waiting for the compliment that used to come wrapped in hands and plans. I let the good stand alone. Friends can say "looks good" without escorting the sentence anywhere. There were moments I could have played a different game, sharper, with rules and consequences. I didn't. No account closures, no speeches. The point was to stand on mine. And standing is quiet work. You learn where to place your weight, how to breathe through a pause, how to recognize bait, and step around it without calling anyone a fisherman. Late one evening, she came home early from happy hour, bracelet off, heels in hand, the soft look that means she'd like to borrow a feeling. I was making omelets. She slid onto a stool and watched the pan. Smells good. I slid a plate toward her and sat across. We ate, just the clink of forks and the hiss of the stove cooling. After, she didn't move. You haven't asked who I was with. I nodded. I don't need to. She inhaled. You're different. I sipped water. Not different. Aligned. That was the midpoint, though neither of us said the word. Something in her expression flickered. Recognition, maybe, that the levers she'd been pulling now lifted nothing. My detachment wasn't a performance. It had no audience. It was simply me, seated in my own life. I went to bed before she did, set my alarm, placed my phone face down, as a habit that fits this version of us. When she slid in beside me a half hour later, she shifted closer, then stopped herself, a reflex hitting a new boundary. I didn't flinch or reach or roll away. I lay there steady, the fan turning overhead. The room cooled to the setting we'd chosen together without ever naming it. The first crack sounded like a cheerful good morning text at 6:58 a.m. with 3 emojis instead of 1. She hadn't messaged first in weeks. I was lacing my shoes for boxing and let it sit until after rounds. When I replied, I kept it steady. By midweek, she pivoted to warmth. She stopped by my office with iced coffee, and that laugh she saves for rooms she wants to soften. We walked 2 blocks, and she told me she missed us being fun. I nodded and asked what fun meant now. She described concerts, last-minute dinners, a weekend road trip. All things she'd shelved when she decided to feel light without me. I said I had Houston next week, then a workshop, then the Mavs on Friday. We can look at the calendar. Her smile held, but I watched the math in her eyes. Light had turned into empty. Guilt arrived in a casual wrapper. You've been distant, she said in the doorway that night, tone careful. I was plating salmon. I asked what distant meant to her. She said it felt like I was punishing her, withholding on purpose. I shook my head. I'm just aligning with what you said you wanted. She looked at the pan, then at the table I'd set for one. You didn't make me a plate. I slid the extra across. Friends share. We ate without a speech. The next morning, she tried seduction like a card she hadn't meant to play yet. New dress, hair pinned, the perfume that used to live in our weekends. She leaned on the counter and asked if I could take off early so we could hit that pop-up bar. I had sparring at 6. She traced the rim of her glass and said I could skip once. Blame showed up after a rooftop happy hour hosted by her team. Someone put on a playlist from college, phones came out, and all that flattering light made everything feel cinematic. She posted a boomerang with me in the background and captioned it "Roomy Energy Unlocked." Comments piled up faster than the drinks. Back at the condo, she scrolled them, laughing alone. You're taking this friend thing too far, she said finally, eyes still on the screen. I rinsed a glass. I'm not taking anything. I'm setting it down. She tried public re-enlistment at Jenna's birthday. Long table, shared plates, that hum people make when they like themselves together. She took the seat next to me for the first time in months and threaded her fingers through mine like a memory. I didn't yank away. I let our hands rest there until the server came, then eased free to pick up the menu. Later, when the cake came out, she tugged at my sleeve and asked the table if anyone had ever dated their best friend. She framed it like a debate, eyes sliding to me for the wink we used to trade. Jenna cocked her head. Depends what you mean by date. Her boyfriend laughed. If it's dating, it's not best friend chores, it's everything. The table nodded in that slow way honest rooms nod when truth has weight. She smiled too brightly and changed the subject. After, in the parking lot heat, she held my gaze longer than conversation needed. I let the night close around us without a promise. The optional twist arrived by itself. The coworker who gets her sense of humor announced an engagement in the group chat with a photo at White Rock at dusk. She'd told herself their banter meant an exit was warming. The ring said it was never her door. She brought it up fast, then laughed it off faster, then asked if I was free that night. I wasn't. I had tickets to a minor league game with Drew, the kind of nothing plan you keep when your life isn't built around reacting. Panic doesn't always look like panic. She sent me a Holds calendar invite for Saturday brunch to reconnect. The note field said my treat with a winky face, a joke that might have landed 2 months ago. I declined and texted, "Let's play it by ear." She replied with nothing. That evening she stood in the doorway of the gym and watched me hit mitts. After, hair damp at her temples, she said she missed me. I said I hadn't gone anywhere. She asked if I wanted to be with her or not. I told her I don't live in questions with no real terms. She looked over my shoulder at the ring and blinked away, whatever started to collect in her eyes. The circle around us began to see it. Jenna texted me a simple, "I'm sorry," after brunch plans fell apart for the third time because the girls were suddenly free. A guy from her team pulled me aside at happy hour and said I seemed more myself lately. She tried a soft apology. Not a speech. Those are for people who want to make a movie out of a moment. This was a quiet "you're right" in the kitchen, eyes on the faucet. I asked which part. She said the part where she minimized what we had. She said she'd like to try again without labels. I asked what try meant this time. She said dates, effort, fewer jokes about roommates, more nights we meet in the middle of the couch. It was a good list. It would have been a perfect list before the sentence that started this. I told her I'd hear it. Hearing isn't the same as agreeing. 2 days later, the blame lever came back hard. She accused me of enjoying this, of taking notes for a victory lap. I told her I don't keep scorecards, just calendars. She said I was cold. I said I was calm. She said she felt ignored. I said I was standing exactly where she told me to stand. We let the dishwasher run while those lines settled into the walls. When seduction didn't move anything and guilt didn't shame me into performing, she reached for emergency. She booked a last-minute room at a hotel downtown and sent a photo of the lobby installation, all glass and gold. "Come meet me." No details, just a demand. I walked to the window, took in the Dallas skyline, and realized I didn't want to cross the city to audition for a part she'd rewritten while I was still playing it. I texted back, "Hope you have a relaxing night." She didn't respond. 2 hours later, a second photo landed. Room service tray, 2 champagne flutes, 1 hand. No face in frame. The old me would have driven, heart in throat, ready to rescue. The current me placed my phone face down and finished the book I'd started, a chapter about opportunity cost. The next morning she made pancakes, the good kind, with the blueberries in the batter, not scattered on top for show. She slid a plate in front of me and waited. We ate. She asked if I still found her attractive. I told her attraction was never the question. By then, other people had adjusted without being briefed. Invitations started to come to me with a +1 line blank. My brother stopped asking if I'd be bringing her to games. Jenna sent a podcast about boundaries and followed it with a quick promise not to turn me into a project. At work, a colleague who'd met her twice told me I seemed clearer in meetings. I told him clarity isn't magic. It's subtraction. The last move was panic without a package. She stood in the door one night with a small bag and asked if I'd mind if she stayed at a friend's for a few days to think. I said I minded less than I would have before. She nodded, waited for "I love you" or "don't go" or something else she could fold into a story later. I told her to text me when she was safe. She said okay and didn't move. We both waited for a script that didn't exist anymore. I slept well, because the noise in my head had gone quiet. The room felt like a room again, not a stage. In the morning I made coffee and looked at the caveman simplicity of the to-do list on the fridge. Work, gym, call dad, teach workshop. I added 1 line at the bottom. Choose terms. Then I stood at the counter with the mug warming my hands and felt the floor settle beneath me. Whatever came next would not be a reaction. It would be my decision, made in daylight, with the same calm I bring to numbers that don't lie. I woke to quiet and an open calendar. She'd taken the small bag to a friend's place, and the condo felt like a room again instead of a stage. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and looked at the line I'd added to the to-do list. Choose terms. If we were truly more like friends, then we were 2 adults who could appreciate each other without confusing proximity for commitment. Friends don't share beds out of habit. Friends don't negotiate respect. I drafted what needed drafting. A clean message, a short list, a plan that didn't require her to perform or me to beg. I started with logistics because logistics keep emotions from trying to drive. I updated my emergency contacts, moved my toiletries from the master to the guest bath, separated our subscriptions, and exported the calendar entries I alone owned. I canceled a reservation I'd made months ago at a place she had once called our forever favorite. I emailed my landlord about a month-to-month option on a one-bedroom that opened up in the building across the street. He replied within an hour. The unit was available next week. The decision settled in without drama, the way math settles once the numbers stop resisting what they are. By noon, she texted asking if we could talk that evening. I told her yes and gave her a time like any adult who has a life. At 6, she walked in cautious and pretty, hair pinned, a soft sweater she wore on the nights she wanted to feel like home. I cleared the island and set out water. No wine. We stood facing each other like two people who know what's at stake and aren't interested in dragging it out. I went first. I reminded her of the exact sentence that started this. Word for word, not as a weapon, but as the foundation she laid. I told her I'd taken it seriously, aligned accordingly, and learned something that should have been obvious. When affection becomes optional, respect is the only measure left. I said it calmly because calm was the point. She listened with her hands wrapped around the glass, and then leaned forward like she could pull the words back before consequence arrived. She said she'd been careless, that she missed the way we used to meet in the middle, that she'd like to try again with terms we both chose. It was late. I didn't offer a counterproposal. I told her what I had decided. We were going to be exactly what she named. No half-romance held together by habit. I would be moving into the unit across the street at the end of the week. We didn't need to fight over furniture or invent villains. We just needed to stop pretending that calling something light keeps it from weighing on both of us. She swallowed hard and asked if there was anything she could do to change my mind. I said yes, but the thing had already been done months ago, and you can't retroactively respect someone. You either do or you don't, and the ledger shows itself in 100 minor line items. She tried a smile that used to be enough to reset a night. I laid out the clean boundaries. No overnight visits, no weaving back into routine. We could be decent and humane. We could help with the last boxes and the mail that goes astray. We could even grab coffee in daylight once the move was finished and there was nothing left to negotiate. She nodded like a person hearing instructions from a nurse after surgery, grateful to be alive, uncertain how to walk yet. When she realized I wasn't waiting for a grand apology, the panic showed. She said she didn't want to lose me. I told her she was losing the version of me who tolerated being minimized. I said it without heat, and I watched it land the way truth lands when it has nowhere else to go. The next 2 days were practical. I packed with the same care I bring to quarterly close, labels on boxes, receipts tucked into folders, keys sorted onto different rings. She helped quietly, more gentle than she had been in months, the kind of gentle that arrives when stakes are suddenly real. Her dad came by to move the heavier things. He shook my hand longer than necessary and told me I was welcome at their table anytime. I thanked him and didn't promise anything I couldn't keep. Word spreads even when you don't spread it. Jenna reached out with a one-line message, proud of you. My brother showed up with tacos and a dolly and took a photo of me standing in the new place with the stupid grin of a man who just did a hard thing without turning it into a spectacle. I slept the first night on a mattress on the floor and still woke up rested. She texted the next evening to say the condo felt wrong without me. I stared at the words and recognized the shape of grief that arrives when a toy you were sure would always be in the box is gone. I replied like a friend would. I know change is hard. I'm rooting for you. She wrote back a paragraph about mistakes and timing and the way she'd let other voices narrate her life. I put the phone face down and finished folding the last stack of shirts. When I picked it up again, I wrote the only sentence that mattered to both of us. I forgave you already. Forgiveness isn't the same thing as return. Life didn't become a movie after that. It became precise. I taught the workshop on Saturday morning and watched a room full of people breathe easier as their budgets started to make sense. I ran at White Rock in the evening and noticed how the water holds light just long enough for a good day to end without waste. I boxed. I read. I went to the Mavs with my brother and argued about rotations like the world was simple again. I bought a plant that might survive me and a coffee table that would not impress Instagram, which is exactly how I like my furniture, honest and unbothered. She reached out once more a week later, late at night, the hour we used to text from different rooms for the fun of it. The message was long and careful. She wanted to try for real, titles and all, counseling if I preferred it, no more jokes to strangers about roommates, no more calculus performed on what she gives versus what she gets. I read it twice. It was the message I would have celebrated in April. I didn't ignore her. I answered with the same clarity I'd used to pack my boxes. I told her I believed her, and I hoped she kept that promise for herself and the next man who earned it. I told her I wasn't the test case anymore. Then I put the phone on the dresser and stood at the window of the new place, the city moving like it always does, indifferent and alive. Respect is not negotiable. You can discount almost anything else for a season: time, attention, the little rituals. But once respect gets marked down, it never scans at full price again. That's not cynicism. It's inventory. The life I'm building from here has fewer discounts and more cash on hand. Friendship where it's real. Love where it's returned. Silence where noise used to be. Rooms with air and a door I lock because it's mine, not because someone inside needs privacy from me. Sometimes a story ends with a clean line you can point to on a calendar. Sometimes it ends the way ours did. Slowly, then all at once, with a sentence spoken on a couch and a man who believed her enough to act. Months from now, I might see her across a grocery aisle and nod like people who were decent to each other when it counted. Or I might never see her again. Either way, I don't need an audience or a verdict. I needed a boundary, and I kept it. I left the new keys on the hook by the door, set the coffee for morning, and lay down in a bed that wasn't shared by habit. The fan turned, steady and ordinary. I slept like a man who made a decision in daylight and let the night be just a night.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.